I didn't realize I was already being hunted until I saw my own footprints going in two different directions. I know how insane that sounds. I know how impossible it should be. But when you're standing alone in the middle of nowhere, with nothing but dead silence swallowing the world around you, you start to understand that some things out there don't care about your rules, your logic, or your sanity. They just want you afraid. And I was. The moment I looked down at the ground, frozen dirt cracking beneath my boots, I felt my entire body go cold. I had been walking straight, one path, one direction. Yet there they were, two sets of my footprints splitting apart like I had somehow divided in half and walked both ways at once. And it wasn't the footprints themselves that terrified me. It was the fact that one set was fresher than the other. The fresher ones weren't mine. I dropped my flashlight. The beam spun wildly across the empty field, shaking like it was terrified too. My breath pushed out in sharp bursts of steam that disappeared too fast into the cold night. I kept telling myself I was wrong, that the dim light was playing tricks on me, that tired eyes can create monsters out of shadows. But deep down I knew, shadows weren't the problem. Something else was. A branch snapped behind me. Not a small snap. Not the crack of ice or the drop of a pine cone. It was a clean, heavy break. The kind that only happens when something big steps where it shouldn't. I didn't move. I didn't turn around. I didn't even breathe. Because in that 1 second, I suddenly understood the horrible truth. Whatever was behind me had been copying me, matching my footsteps, repeating my path, echoing everything I did, until it didn't. My heart slammed so hard against my chest it felt like bones would break. The night around me was still. Too still, like the world itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what I would do next. Then I heard it. A whisper. Right behind my ear. Not a voice I recognized. Not even a voice that sounded human. Just a thin, cold breath that didn't belong to anything alive, gently exhaling one awful word that crawled into my skull like a parasite. Found you. I spun around. Nothing was there. But the snow at my back, untouched before, now held a perfect set of footprints. Mine. Fresh. Leading toward me. Stopping inches away. And ending as if I had walked right into myself. That was the moment I understood I wasn't alone, I wasn't safe, and whatever was hunting me, whatever was mimicking me, had finally stepped out of the shadows. And it wanted me to know. Before that night twisted itself into a nightmare, everything felt painfully normal, almost boring. My name is Lucas Avery, 31 years old, a field surveyor for a small environmental research group. Most of my job involves hiking through empty land, marking soil conditions, logging wildlife tracks, and making notes no one reads unless a company wants to build something there. That particular evening, I was deep in the middle of nowhere. Miles outside a tiny rural town most people couldn't find on a map. Endless frozen fields stretched all around me. The kind where the wind has nothing to hit except your face. It was early winter. Late enough that the sun dipped behind the horizon by 5 p.m. But not yet cold enough to be dangerous. The kind of cold that wakes you up rather than scares you. I'd driven out around noon in my old truck, parked near a line of bare cottonwoods, and started walking the grid lines assigned for the day. Everything had been quiet, peaceful. The air smelled like pine and frost, and the only sound came from my boots crunching over the frozen ground. I actually liked being alone out here. No traffic, no voices, no stress. Just open space and silence. Most people would call it isolated or creepy. To me, it was a break from life. Around 4:30 p.m., I'd finished most of the surveys and decided to take one last sweep before heading back. The sky was pale blue, fading into soft orange near the horizon. Clouds moved like slow brushstrokes. For a moment, I just stood there, breathing in the cold and watching my breath float away. It felt peaceful. My mind drifted. I thought about my warm apartment back in town, the leftovers waiting in my fridge, the stack of boring paperwork on my desk. I thought about calling my sister later, maybe catching up on a show. Nothing unusual. Nothing strange. Just the unremarkable thoughts of an unremarkable day. I wasn't stressed. I wasn't scared. I wasn't expecting anything except a quiet drive home. I bent down, checked the last soil sample, jotted down a few notes, and marked the location on my GPS. Everything routine. Everything exactly the same as every other trip I'd taken out here. Even the silence felt normal, soft, gentle, wrapping around me like a blanket. I didn't feel watched. I didn't hear anything out of place. No animals running. No extraño noises. Just the breeze moving through the grass in calm, predictable waves. If anything, I felt almost too comfortable. That kind of comfort you don't question until later. When you realize it was the last moment you'd ever feel safe. At exactly 5:12 p.m., I turned toward the truck, ready to head back. The sky darkened faster than I expected, but I didn't think much of it. Winter sunsets are like that, quick, sudden, quiet. I didn't know that with every step I took toward home, something else was taking a step toward me. I wasn't more than 100 yards from my truck when the silence changed. At first, I didn't even notice it, not consciously. I just slowed down without realizing why. Something felt off, the way the air shifts right before a storm, even though the sky was clear. The wind, which had been steady all afternoon, suddenly dipped into complete stillness. Not a breeze. Not even a whisper through the grass. The kind of dead air that makes you aware of your own breathing. I glanced up, expecting clouds, but the sky was perfectly open, washed with the last gray light of dusk. That's when I heard it. A tiny sound behind me. A soft, brittle crack. It wasn't loud, just the faint snap of a twig underfoot. I'd stepped on dozens myself while surveying, but this one wasn't mine. I stopped walking and waited, listening. The fields around me spread out so far they almost looked like a frozen ocean. Nothing but rolling grassy frost and patches of thin trees. There wasn't another person within miles. I told myself it was an animal, maybe a deer, maybe a fox, but for some reason that explanation didn't fit right. I'd been out here hundreds of times. I knew what those animals sounded like. This didn't sound like that. I held my breath. Nothing. Just that thick, unnatural stillness again. Probably nothing, I muttered, starting to walk again, a little faster than before. No reason to panic. The light was dropping quicker, and the temperature followed. I just needed to get back to the truck. But then the feeling started. At first it was mild. A prickle at the back of my neck, like remembering something embarrassing from years ago. A tiny, irrational urge to turn around. Not because I heard anything, but because something told me that if I didn't look, I'd regret it. I resisted for a few steps. Then the urge got worse. When I finally turned, there was nothing behind me. Just the empty landscape fading into cold twilight. My footprints dotted the ground in a straight line, leading back to where I'd collected the last sample. No other prints. No movement. No animals. No person. But I still felt watched. I rubbed my arms, trying to shake off the unease. The air felt heavier now, like the pressure had changed. Even the colors around me seemed slightly wrong, too muted, too washed out. My face felt warm, but the cold bit at my fingertips. Something in the environment had shifted, even if I couldn't explain how. I walked faster. Then the sound started again. A soft rustle. Something sliding through the grass. Another tiny snap, much closer this time. Every few steps, I turned my head, trying to catch something moving. But every time I looked, the field looked exactly the same as before. Still. Empty. Silent. No threat I could see. But everything in my body told me something was there. Watching. Pacing me. Closing in. I didn't run, not yet. But for the first time that day, I wished I had never come out here alone. I was 30 steps from the truck when I heard it. A slow, deliberate exhale. Not wind. Not an animal. A breath. Human. Close. Too close. I froze mid-step, my boot hovering above the dirt before coming down silently. My chest tightened as the air grew heavier, thicker, like the atmosphere itself didn't want me here anymore. The temperature dropped so sharply it felt like the warmth was yanked out of my skin. And then behind me, the grass parted. Not crushed under footsteps, pushed aside, as if something tall, something heavy, was rising up from the field itself. I turned my head just enough to see movement at the edge of my peripheral vision. At first I thought it was a person. But the shape was wrong. It was too long, too thin, and too still. I kept staring, even though everything inside me screamed to look away. The shape swayed slightly, like it hadn't fully figured out how to stand. Then it straightened, slowly, deliberately, its silhouette peeling itself from the shadows like it had been hiding in plain sight. My breath hitched. The thing stood taller than any person I'd ever seen. 6.5 feet? 7? More. The grass around it barely moved, but I could hear it. Those same soft snaps I'd been hearing, now steady and rhythmic, like joints shifting, or bones adjusting. That's when I saw its head. It tilted just a fraction as if examining me. I still couldn't see its face clearly, but its outline made my stomach twist. It was bald. Too smooth. Too reflective. Catching the last faint strip of fading dusk. And its arms. God, its arms hung far lower than they should have, swaying like loose ropes. Something was horribly, undeniably wrong. For the first time, I felt real danger, raw and absolute, slam into my chest. This wasn't an animal. This wasn't a person. This wasn't anything I had a reference for. Okay, walk, I whispered to myself. Just walk. I took one step forward. The thing took one step too. Not a guess. Not a coincidence. Perfectly matched. Like it mimicked me. I swallowed hard and tried again, 2 steps. It followed. 2 perfect, silent steps. My pulse thrashed in my ears. Every instinct I had flared into panic, telling me the truth I'd been trying to avoid. It had been following me the entire time. The air around me tightened, like the world itself pulled inward. My lungs burned as the pressure mounted. I could feel the thing watching me, not with curiosity, but with intention. Prédatory intention. Then it moved. Not walking. Not running. It shifted, a sudden glide, as if the ground beneath it no longer mattered. One blink, and it cut the distance between us in half. A raw bolt of terror shot through me. This wasn't suspense anymore. This wasn't imagination. This was real. And it wanted me. I did the only thing I could. I ran. I sprinted toward the truck so fast my legs barely felt like they were under me. Every breath stabbed my lungs. Every heartbeat hammered against my ribs like it was trying to break out. Gravel shot out from under my boots as I tore across the empty field, praying, begging, that the keys I'd left in the cup holder were still there. Behind me I heard it. Not footsteps. Not breathing. A sound like fabric dragging across the ground. Long, slow. Heavy. I didn't dare look back. The truck came into view between the trees, the only thing in this vast nowhere that looked like salvation. My chest clenched with hope, real, desperate hope, until something slammed into the dirt to my right. A shadow. Tall. Violent. I jerked left, barely dodging the swipe of something long and pale that cut through the air where my neck had been a second earlier. My legs buckled, but adrenaline shoved me upright again. Go. Go. I screamed to myself, half sobbing. I reached the truck, yanked the door open and dove inside. I slammed the lock button so hard my thumb went numb. The entire truck rocked as something hit the side, one massive, deliberate strike. The window beside me quivered. No cracks. Not yet. My hands shook uncontrollably as I scrambled for the keys. They slipped. Fell. I clawed at them on the floor mat, my fingers trembling, my breath coming in sharp, broken gasps. Outside, the shape moved along the truck bed, slow, cautious, like it was studying the metal cage between us. I heard a low scrape as its fingers, if they were fingers, dragged across the steel. I found the keys. My hand was shaking so violently I almost dropped them again. The truck rocked a second time, harder, and a high, thin whine came from the window as pressure built against the glass. It was trying to break in. I jammed the keys into the ignition, twisting so fast I felt the metal bite into my skin. The engine coughed. Once. Twice. Not now. Not now. The shape pressed against the window, and for the first time I saw part of its face, smooth, pale skin with something moving beneath it, shifting like something alive under a sheet. The engine finally roared to life. I slammed the truck into reverse without looking, tires spitting dirt as I fishtailed backward. A tall shadow lunged at the window, and I ducked instinctively, feeling the glass shudder violently. I straightened the wheel, floored the gas, and shot down the long dirt road like a bullet. The truck bounced violently over potholes, branches whipping the windshield, but I didn't let off for even a second. In the mirrors, God help me, I saw it. Running. Not gliding. Not drifting. Running on all fours like a spider, impossibly fast, its limbs contorting in ways no living thing should move. My stomach flipped. I pushed the gas pedal to the floor. The truck roared. Dust swallowed the road. The creature fell farther behind. 10 yards. 20. 30. Then. It stopped. Just stopped. Standing at the edge of the road. Tall. Still. Watching. I didn't slow down. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. I didn't feel safe, not even when the highway finally appeared like a lifeline in the dark. I didn't stop driving until I saw the warm glow of a gas station sign, rising out of the darkness like a lighthouse. Cars. People. Lights. Civilization. It felt unreal after the nightmare I'd just outrun. I pulled into the lot, parked crookedly near the front door, and stumbled out of the truck like my legs barely remembered how to work. The cool air hit my face, and for the first time in nearly an hour, I felt like I could breathe. Safe. Or safe enough. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed loudly as I grabbed a bottle of water and tried to steady my shaking hands. My reflection in the small station window startled me. Wide eyes, dirt-streaked face, sweat-soaked shirt. I looked like someone who'd crawled out of a wreck. The cashier stared at me. "You all right, man? You look like you saw a ghost." I almost laughed. If only it were a ghost. I stepped back outside and walked around to the passenger side of my truck to inspect the damage. I expected dents, scratches, something to prove I wasn't losing my mind. But the metal was clean. Too clean. No dents. No claw marks. No gord fram. As if nothing had touched it at all. My chest tightened. It hit the truck. I saw the window bow inward. I felt the entire frame shake. So where was the evidence? I circled the vehicle twice, more frantic each time. Nothing. Not one mark. My mind fought itself, half begging to believe I escaped something real. The other half terrified I imagined all of it. But then I saw it. In the thin line where the door met the frame, wedged so deep it almost blended with the rubber, was a single strand. White. Translucent. Longer than any human hair. And cold. Not cool. Cold. Like an icicle you could hold between your fingertips. I backed away slowly, heart pounding as if it recognized the truth before I did. I climbed back into the truck, locked the doors without thinking, and sat behind the wheel, breathing hard. I didn't want to drive. I didn't want to stay. I didn't want to do anything except wake up from whatever this was. The gas station lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then stabilized. But something in me froze. Because as they flickered, the shadows around the edge of the lot seemed to shift. Stretch. Move. I blinked hard and looked again. Nothing. Just the quiet hum of neon lights and the distant sound of trucks on the highway. I started the engine and got back on the road, keeping the speed steady this time. I told myself I was fine. I told myself it was over. But as the miles rolled under the tires, I couldn't shake one sickening truth. It didn't chase me because it failed. It stopped because it chose to stop. Like it wasn't finished. Like it knew something I didn't. And when I finally got home, when I parked in my driveway and stepped out, I found another translucent strand waiting on my front doorstep. Perfectly placed. As if left there. For me. And that's when I realized. I don't think I escaped the middle of nowhere. I think the middle of nowhere followed me home.